Hello, everybody. Are you being given access to Microsoft Copilot, but you're not sure what to do with it? Well, you come to the right place. In this webinar, I'm going to be talking about 3 steps to redesign your HR workflows with Copilot's AI agents. So, a bit about me. I've been working in healthcare HR and recruiting since 2019 through my company's Applechat and Nurse Recruitment Experts. We worked with about 175 organizations across the US and Canada. And one thing that we noticed is that when it comes to implementing AI in healthcare HR, there are a lot of barriers and a lot of points of contention and confusion. So I thought that I would put myself as a good recruiting consultant who's branched out to become more than a recruiting consultant, but still wants to be a consultant, to look into all this for you and to really dig deep into what is Microsoft Copilot, what are Copilot AI agents, and how can some of the clients that I've worked with actually use them. So we're getting some of our customers saying to us, nurse recruitment is still important, but we just don't have the money to hire as many nurses as we did before. And actually, we have to lay some off. Now, our C suite are asking, how can you be more effective? How can you do more recruiting and better retention with less? And I think that AI proposes a good opportunity for a lot of healthcare providers to do that. So come along with me on this deep dive. I'll be going into redesigning HR workflows with Copilot's Agentic AI. So first of all, you're probably wondering, why am I focusing on this topic? Why are we looking at Microsoft Copilot and why are we looking at Agentic AI for this? Well, I want you to understand something about Microsoft Copilot, and that is that it's not what you think it is. A lot of users of Copilot are treating it like a ChatGPT style chatbot where you ask it questions or you ask it to write content for you. And it can absolutely do that. That's one of the core functions and really the base of its service. It's a large language model providing a chat interface for you to acquire and generate information. But really, the direction the Microsoft Copilot is going is a little bit more exciting for the healthcare HR use case and healthcare in general. So think of it in terms of 3 connections going into Copilot. So the first is memory. So Copilot can connect to your organization's data, and that is across what they call Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft 365 suite of services, from the Word documents, the Excels, the SharePoint, into the inbox of Outlook. It's able to reach in and understand that, and in doing so, understand your own style, habits, relationships, and workflows. I mentioned data there, so it doesn't just go into Microsoft 365, but also can go out into your ATS, HRIS, emails, and meetings to understand really what you work with and how it connects to your Microsoft group of tools. So, for example, it can go into Workday and understand who's in your ATS, when did they apply, what stage are they, and then go into your email and understand when's the last touch point you had with them. The final piece of this is what Microsoft call inference, which is contextual insights and predictive actions from across your data and memory. So it's not just a chatbot that you go in, you ask a question, it spits it out. But Microsoft are pushing this to become kind of the orchestration layer for your daily tasks, whereby you can come into the Copilot user interface and you can get work done without having to frequently leave it. So you can send emails, you can text candidates, you can prepare for an interview, all within that interface, which is connected to your memory data and is able to infer using those two sources. And Microsoft Copilot is rolling out. You might have seen it in your Microsoft 365 tools. 1 in 3 Fortune 500s, 100,000 organizations have used Copilot Studio, where you can build agents. And I'll be going into that a little bit later. And a really big topic in healthcare, you're probably aware, is the ability for AI to take notes and be kind of an ambient AI where it sits during the physician encounter or the nursing encounter, takes the notes so the nurses and the physicians don't have to. 70% 70% of Fortune 500 companies are using Copilot, and in healthcare particularly, you're going to be often locked into doing it. So you're probably seeing hype and buzz about Claude or OpenAI, Anthropic. You might have heard that company, and they're all great. But the fact of the matter is that in healthcare HR, you're under the lock and key of your IT team. And with so many hacks going into healthcare facilities over the past few years, with HIPAA compliance concerns and IT being generally paranoid about bringing in new tools which can read and hold organizations' data, Copilot really makes sense for a lot of organizations. And that's why you're probably seeing it, that they don't need to go out and make a new business agreement with a new vendor who's maybe popped up in the last few years. They can just tick a box in their Microsoft admin and then add the Copilot that you're using every day. So, what's led us to this point, and why even consider using AI in healthcare HR? Isn't it meant to be all about the people and people relationships and the human resource and leveraging relationships? Well, there's a few trends ongoing that have really pushed this to the forefront of a lot of people's minds. The first is that healthcare margins are compressed. Operating profits for particularly smaller healthcare systems, like the one you may be working at, are really been reduced the last couple of years and could be reduced more with the Medicare, Medicaid cuts going through under the big, beautiful bill HR1, which Trump has signed through. That means that you have probably seen team members laid off. I spoke to one of our clients who had 7 recruiters on our team in 2024, reduced down to 3 in 2026. So over half of the team have been cut from a mid-sized hospital in the Pacific Northwest since 2024. You're probably seeing your recruiting budgets cut for recruiting ad spend. That's something that a lot of our clients have seen. And at the same time, the old problems remain. Struggling with hard to fill positions like physicians, specialty nursing roles, APPs. Churn is still ongoing. Retention hasn't really improved too much. And there's operational inefficiencies. A lot of recruiters who are a bit old style, have been with organizations for a while, are struggling to keep up with everything that's changing in healthcare recruiting. So there's a lot of headwinds, I think, for healthcare HR and recruiting teams in 2026. And everyone's looking for solutions to weather the storm. And that's where AI agents, I think, could potentially come in and help a lot of you. So, what is an AI agent? You might have heard the term agentic AI. Well, what is that? Well, according to the Copilot creators, an AI-powered assistant that can independently act and interact in a dynamic world to perform tasks and make decisions, retrieve information, take actions, and operate independently. So they're starting to look going from a chatbot where you ask questions and it spits out responses, you ask it to do things, it spits it out, to agents which can act more autonomously and make their own decisions. So you ask it to do something once, you say, do this every day of the month, and it goes away and executes that task, which is a lot better for you because you don't have to ask it to do it every day. And the autonomous part is important too, whereby it can make its own decisions. So here's a use case. If I say, go into my Outlook and find me 10 physicians that I haven't gotten back to and possibly I need to follow up with, it's making decisions on who to return to you with. It's not just returning everyone in your inbox or everyone who has doctor in the email body because you could be talking to your team members about doctors. It's going to find who is actually a physician, cross reference that against your ATS or just base it on the discussion and then return back to you. So you can see that there's a bit of a difference there. And across the board, according to Microsoft, the AI agent market will grow to 47 billion from 5.1 billion in 2024. You might have saw that OpenAI recently acquired a company, actually yesterday, called Tomorrow, that help organizations implement AI agents in their workflows. So this is really coming out, and it's a real kind of growth area. According to Microsoft, they think that every dollar will return $3.7. Now, they're selling the product, so of course they're gonna say that, but we are seeing like a lot of results coming out of various companies using this. The problem though that you're probably facing is this, that technology is everywhere, but value is not. So there's a lot of vendors out there. Every vendor has put AI into their marketing spiel and their sales spiel, AI powered platform, etc., etc. But really, what are you going to use AI for and how do you measure success? Well, in our 3 steps to redesign HR workflows, we've figured out 3 key things that you need to do to make this work. So before you look into Copilot's AI agents, think about this. Firstly, diagnose. You need to build a value framework and a business case to understand before you take any steps, what outcomes do you want AI to influence and improve? And they have to be tied to your KPIs in the sense of time to hire or unfilled positions getting filled, cost per hire, retention, employee engagement, etc. Once you've done that, you design. So you match your needs to what Copilot's agents can actually do and really map out what do your workflows look like with AI agents integrated into them. Finally, step 3 is to deploy. So this is a big challenge. I think the way I'm hearing, so I've spoken with about 15 of our current and former clients about this. They're at varying stages as organizations, depending on the technical interest of their leaders in Copilot's AI. But also their team are at various stages too. So recruiter A is down here, not using it. Recruiter B is up here, using it a lot. And the question is, how do we as a team or as an HR function align and track usage, measure its effectiveness, and coordinate things at a leadership level? I'm going to turn my camera's auto zoom off because it's making me look like I'm growing and shrinking every second. So going into step one, it's about diagnosing. Okay. So how do we actually go about building that framework and understanding all this? Well, you need to overcome the challenges that most people are facing and the traps that are easy to fall into. So, abstract value propositions disconnected from real needs, resulting in stale momentum and disengagement. Here's how you do it. Firstly, deconstruct your processes, figure out what do our workflows look like today, identify where AI come in, and always be focusing on the outcomes. So, for example, here's a few questions you can ask. What are we struggling with and what do we want to transform? What priorities drive cost, delays, or friction? What priorities are important? And what are we planning to do that maybe we could improve with AI? Make this your shopping list. You don't really need to think about the technical capabilities of Copilot agents or any AI at the moment. You just need to think about what are your problems. Start with your problems. And then it's about looking at what Copilot can do. So I like to think of what is time consuming. So if you broke your team's 8 hours a day into 15-minute slots, where would they be spending their time? So is it 4 hours on screening, 3 hours on sourcing, 1 hour answering FAQs from staff? It's going to be different from everyone. One leader said that their labor relations team spend a lot of time on a big spreadsheet where they are tracking arbitrations and grievances, filling that spreadsheet in, using it to prepare for meetings. Another said that they wanted to source more physicians to move into their area. Really, across HR, there's a lot of functions and positions. You have to think about, first of all, before anything else, what are we struggling with and where can we implement this? Then, going into step two, it's about designing those workflows. So, figuring out if this candidate sourcing process could be rebuilt from scratch, what steps could be simplified, removed, or restructured, and then how will we know if it's improved or not? Time consuming, it's a big one. Costly is another. So, where's our team's money going, and how can we optimize that? The thing is, like, we can look at recruiting ad spend, we can talk about softwares that you might want to consolidate, but particularly for smaller teams, the big spend is going to be on workforce. It's going to be on actual recruiters and HR specialists in your team, each one 80,000, 90,000 total compensation all in, including taxes a year plus. And the way I see, like, these AI agents, they need to work alongside humans in the loop. It's not about laying off staff members so you can bring in AI, but the goal should be for your humans in the loop to be more productive and to get more tough work done. And that will enable you to get better results, like hit your KPIs more effectively, which is good for the enterprise because that cut costs and can increase revenue. And also increase productivity so that you don't need to hire new people as frequently. So I'm not for AI replacing people. I'm really for it helping improve that candidate or employee experience. When it comes to cost savings, you will need to think about what does our new team look like with these agents in place? Could it be we're doing a lot more of the human stuff, a lot more personalized touch points and outreach and engagement, which is great? Or is it we're doing the same amount just we're not needing to grow as the organization grows, or we're able to do more with less of a staffing budget. So jumping into it, to deconstruct those business processes, what do you do? Well, here's a handy chart where you need to look at the workflows. So it could be HR service requests, candidate sourcing, and then you need to look at the patterns. So what routines are occurring across those workflows? So is it meeting prep, project status report? What are people doing? Okay. What's the actual work involved in reaching out to a new candidate? So you've got the data piece where you find them, or you got the job description where you review that. You got the data piece where you need to find them, maybe on LinkedIn of a Boolean search. You got writing the message, doing the outreach, doing the call. Just map each step of that and figure out how much time it's taking up. And within each step, look at the patterns. So get really granular about it. If it's sourcing, again, how do you actually identify potential candidates? What is each little step in that chain to do it? Whenever you get granular, you can really see what all the functions are, and then we can come in and we can match that with potential AI augmentation. So really just map it out, like point, 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 point. What are people doing to achieve the workflows? What patterns are they undertaking? Once you've done that, you can identify opportunities. So I like to think of the opportunity here as being matched to individuals in the team. So jumping back a bit, you're taking the candidate sourcing specialist, you're looking at his or her workflows, you're looking at the patterns within those workflows, and then you're writing a quick report on areas of that position that could be augmented with Agentic AI using Copilot that will help make them more productive, more effective, cut costs, and get more candidates. Because when you think about it, not having a physicians filled is quite costly, and hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of revenue lost each year going up the specialties. If you can use this to source one or two new hires a year, you're really making up for the cost. Copilot costs, well, there's two tiers. There's the free tier, which a lot of you are probably using, and then there's $30 a month tier, where you get everything unlimited pretty much. And if you have, say, one sourcing agent, that's 360 a year, which you would probably spend on ads quite quickly. You can really kind of make leaps and bounds if you get it right. So let's say we've got our potential things that AI can do for the sourcer. That could include identifying candidates. So one thing that I've set up is it goes out onto LinkedIn. It searches LinkedIn bios for their interests outside of work. So this is looking at trying to relocate people into a rural area that's got a lot of outside adventure sports. You can go in and see who's got fishing in the bio or hiking in their LinkedIn bio. It takes that, then it figures out what their email address is by searching patterns related to the domain. So if they worked at Mercy Health, it can find publicly available Mercy Health emails, and then it can guess what their email is. And then it goes out and writes a custom message to them, and then puts that 5x, so creates 5 more into an email sequence, and then it goes out to them. Those are things that this sourcing agent has told the AI agent to do. And the sourcer is monitoring that and responding to anyone who replies and adjusting and improving. So you can see there that the whole point of the AI agent that is that it can do different steps in a process, and it's not just going out and writing a message and then asking what to do next. Importantly, you need to figure out, if we do this, can it help us hire and retain more staff, save on costs, get tough work done? Excuse me, drive KPIs forward, or reduce HR team's workflow? It needs to be tied to your existing workflows. And whenever you're making this business case, because you probably will have to your CHRO or chief information officer, they're going to want to be all over the security part of this. How can you make things simple, actionable, customer enabled, and scalable? So you need to be aligned and support your candidates or your internal staff. You have a clear problem statement. It needs to be scalable. Here's just a few more ways you can define the ROI for this. So make sure that the benefits are tangible, there's scenario-based modeling, and the financial metrics are really clearly laid out in a ROI report, a cost benefit analysis. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to work. This is the workflows it's going to go into, the patterns and processes for this particular employee, and then here's the ROI that we're going to get out of it. So I'm going to recap this section. What are we talking about here? It's how you can use Microsoft Copilot. The first step is diagnosing. So you need to build a value framework and a business case to do it. How do you do that? Deconstruct the processes for individual team members, figure out what they do, how they spend their time, and then ask yourself, what are some of your problems that you want to solve? What's time consuming, difficult, costly that your team are doing? And then what outcomes do you want to achieve? So where do you want your cost per hire to be? Or where do you want your time to fill positions to be? And then you can go in and move on to step 2, which is matching your needs to what Copilot can actually do. So I want to just spotlight a couple of comments I got before moving on. So I asked all the attendees what stage they are at with integrating Copilot, and results were interesting. 50% of respondees, so 50% of people that sign up to this webinar said that they're experimenting with Copilot, and then 50% said it's fully integrated. And that's interesting that none of the respondees said they're looking into it, and none of the respondees said they're partially deployed. So it feels like people are really dipping their toe in, or they're fully integrated. There's not a medium established yet, and I think that survey is going to be skewed on perception, and maybe the reality a bit different, but it's certainly interesting. And if you want any more of those survey results, feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to share some more learnings. Moving on, we're going to talk about how really we understand Copilot and what it is deep down. You saw at the start, I talked about how it's an orchestration layer which can connect certain fields, and you see here practically how that looks. So going into your work files, going across to Workday, going across to the web. So let's say you are wanting to do a re-engagement campaign of old candidates that are in your ATS, and you're hiring for a new unit that's just opened, say a new OR, few new OR rooms that are opened, and you need operating room nurses and surgeons. So the trigger for that could be you ask Copilot to go out and search the web for competitors in your city that are also trying to fill their ORs, help you understand where you're different, what your value proposition is, and why those happily employed nurses and doctors working at your competitors might want to leave those competitors. So it could look at news stories around the competition. It could look at your website, and can look at your competitors' jobs, your jobs, and really draw up a list of comparative points. It can then go in to your email and figure out which doctors and nurses maybe rejected offers in the past, or who ghosted you, what conversations haven't been completely closed. And then it can identify those people. It can use what it's found on the web to write those mails, maybe cross-reference that with Workday to understand who's in your ATS from that group in your email and who isn't, and go back to the web and source new people using the process I mentioned before on LinkedIn. So you can see that these three spaces really can be connected by Copilot. And I think this is the direction that HR is moving in. So Workday do have their own Copilot built in that can reference like people in the ATS, which is great, and it can send emails through the ATS, which is also great. But then you've got your work emails, which are in Outlook. How do you connect those two with the web? It's through Copilot. So if you've opened up Copilot, you might have seen that they have what's called agents. And I can really see a lot of companies, instead of, well, they don't really want it to be like this, but it kind of is, where instead of business coming through directly to them on their website, clients are going to want to start using them within Copilot. So this is Copilot. If you look at here, agents, you can see that I can find Workday, I can add Workday or open it because I've already added it, and then start engaging into my Workday platform. If you come in here and see more agents, there's Zendesk, Canva, Asana. A lot of companies are making their agents these days. Now the other AI companies are a bit further ahead in this, but I think Copilot are catching up, where you'll be able to say, make me a graphic of nurses standing outside our hospital celebrating, and then it can do that in Canva. So you can see that it really has the potential to pull different things in that you're working on, and that's important because to understand what's possible of, you need to really go in there and play about yourself with it, but you need to understand what it is and what it isn't. So where does it work? Well, a lot of different places, and has I think a big role across all of these. Maximally, if you're on the premium subscription, you go on the Outlook and it kind of pops up on the side. You can get it to work within there, or you can just connect it in the chat I just showed you into everything, so that you don't need to jump between channels and platforms. Now, how do we take what we did in step one, bring that into step two, and use our identify workflows, take them and improve them? Well, there's three levels of value. I showed this in my previous webinar, which you can find on the Apply Chat YouTube: individual, functional, and organizational. So individual is just a user, so one person using it to create messaging, going into candidates, etc. Functional would be more agent-based, role-based agents, ones that maybe operate across the recruiting team. So the recruiters, the sourcers. Then we have organizational value. So that could engage the whole HR department have a uplift on outcomes and KPIs across the organization. So while work that's done between one person and the bot at the individual level is helpful for that individual to really track and the ROI and get the outcomes, you need to be pushing over the organization level and try and coordinate things between users. So going back, we have how do you design it? How do you match your needs to what it can do? Well, here's the knowledge that it can engage. So Teams, Microsoft 365, SharePoint, etc. All these things up to now have been in data silos where they sit in their application and they don't really speak to each other. Well, you can use Copilot to get them to talk. And it can go in, take meeting notes in Teams, post those into an email summary for the hiring manager, create and update a candidate slate to summarize the interviews for that particular position, and simultaneously update notes in your ATS. There's really a lot of kind of individual and unique use cases for this. And as I said at the start, it's going to depend on what you identify in stage one. But it's important to know really where it can work in order to do this. So it's the Microsoft suite of tools that you use every day, including Teams. And then it's the web and outside connected apps and services like your ATS, HRIS can be engaged by this. You can ask it to do tasks that you would have manually done before, generate messaging, send emails, review candidates. And it can even do some advanced capabilities like phone calls, but I'll go into that in a moment. Here's different types of agents that are out there already. So, research, analyst, interpreter, facilitator. We created a labor relations agent. So, what it does is it can track a client's labor relations tracker, their Excel or their the CRM that they use, and they can question it. So, they can query that spreadsheet to know what cases are outstanding and important right now. What do we need to look at before our next meeting? And then it prepares the meeting notes for them. And it can also update that. So let's say that they're in the meeting, they've got Teams on listening to what everyone's saying. It can create a transcript after the meeting, send that to the team, and also send recommended updates for the tracker. And they just need to approve it or edit it before it does that. So all that note taking is being handled by Microsoft Copilot. Next, you want to consider the impact and feasibility of each initiative. So, of the problems you've identified, where can you make quick wins? What's going to be a strategic bet? What's a tactical improvement that increases efficiency? And then what's better just to leave for future consideration? You can divide all the ideas you have into 4 categories in this quadrant. Here's some examples. So a quick win is an HR FAQ agent. Just take your HR handbook, policies, PDF format, stick them into an agent, and it's pretty easy to do that. You just go on to Copilot and you click Create Agent. Let me know if you need help with that. And then people can ask it questions. So another one, which is more strategic, is your employer value proposition development. So what are you marketing? How do you communicate that to candidates? And particularly, how do you listen to people? So interview notes, for example, can they feed into your employer value proposition agent where it listens to what do people like about us or what do they dislike about where they are and what would make them interested in joining us? Why did they apply? All that information get logged and put into your employer value proposition agent, which then spits out suggestions based on what people are saying in the market. Because the market is constantly changing, people's needs and interests are changing, and your employer value proposition needs to adjust with those trends and really be driven by what people are searching for, not all about you. Another one is tactical improvement. So there I have key talking point briefs, analyzing candidate response, which can then go into your employer value proposition, and data prep, analysis, visualization. A good one that I've done is you can download your LinkedIn connections. And then I've went into Copilot and said, identify in this list who is a good person to invite to this webinar. And then invited what it said, invite these 2,000 people who are working leadership levels in HR and talent acquisition. And I saw about a 25% improved rate of acceptance of my invites for this webinar versus the previous one, where I just kind of invited people in hospitals and healthcare generally. Step 3 is deployment. Before I go into that, just to recap, you need to understand your problems from step 1 on an individual level and a work role-based level, what outcomes do you want to achieve, and then you need to understand what Copilot can do. So this is kind of fixed. I mean, Copilot is changing constantly, but it's not changing that much, if you know what I mean. Like, it works across your Microsoft Graph, so M365 tools, Outlook, Word, Teams, anything you do in those systems and platforms can be touched, listened to, spoken into, adjusted, read by Copilot. It reaches out to the web too, and then it can go in through outside connections to your ATS, HRIS. Then figure out, okay, across those like platforms, where we're going to put AI into the process, and then move on to step 3, which is deployment. So I'm going to try and make this as big as possible so that you can see it. Yeah, there you go. Because this is quite a big slide. And if you're listening, please forgive me. I will try and read out what the slide says as much as I can. So here's a helpful visualization of one of those workflow positions. So HR manager, right? Omar leads HR for a critical access hospital. What does a day in his life look like from 8 to 1? So 8 a.m., he's researching companies because he's got a new charge nurse coming in for interview, and he wants to understand where that nurse has worked or is working and what's going on with those organizations. Then he's doing that interview and he's using Teams to summarize threads about it. He is asking Copilot to summarize a new compliance handbook in Word. And then he's asking about open headcount. You know, if you're like Omar, if you're an HR generalist or director and you don't have a team of recruiters, you're often doing everything across HR and recruitment. And there's a lot of, especially in smaller organizations, HR teams that are having to jump between HR and recruiting, even though they're often different things. Like recruiting is more of a sales based position. We're trying to sell opportunities or working with you. And HR is more about working with people, building relationships, and trying to get them to stay. Or so my dad told me. He worked in HR for 20 years. Here's a few more uses. Add a slide. Low impact, that one, but okay. And then catching up on communications. So what I'd like you to do after you've done step 1 and 2, once you've visualized what you need to work on, what Copilot can actually do, draw up something like this where you have the human activity, so he uses it to he's using it. It's not just going on in the background, but you're identifying, okay, so in the day-to-day position, here's how it's going to be different if we're using Copilot. Oh, this one's huge. Prepare the workforce. So you need to define what is an agent going to be doing in the new workflow, what's a human doing, what's the ratio of work look like, and plan for talent redeployment. That means what jobs are the agents going to be doing now? And then how do we train our team to get on this? It has impact if individuals are doing it, but really the team should be at the same usage level of each task for a few reasons. Firstly, you can track who's doing great, who's doing not so great, and who needs more support and training of it. You'll understand the genuine effect if everyone's dedicating themselves to utilizing the agents, and you'll be able to track it better. And you can focus more then on the human side where humans can come into the loop. You don't want one person who's using a screening tool that you develop, a screening agent for their candidates, and another who's calling all the candidates. That creates a different type of candidate experience. And the person that's doing all the calling is going to be behind on certain other activities that you want to unlock. So it's really important that you as a leader are overseeing how the workforce are trained on this and how they learn about it and how they actually get on to doing the engagement with the agents. And you have to cooperate with your IT team here because within Microsoft 365 admin, you're able to see um, the usage per user. So you can see someone's utilization of the chat, for example. And within our agents that we create at AppleChat, we provide reports on that too. So there's multiple ways that you can understand this, but really the biggest issue we've seen with rolling out Copilot is there's not clear leadership and alignment between members of teams on who's doing what, where it comes in, and how it's kind of governed on a team level. So the workforce need to be prepared. There are trainings that we do here at AppleChat that we can share with you where we come in. We help do this process for you, where we do step 1, 2, and 3, and then we train the team, and that really comes at the end. But it's about being vigilant, about being a leader, helping people understand why this is happening, getting their buy-in, all the usual things, making them feel part of the process, and say to them, like, hey, this will make your job a lot easier. We're taking what's difficult, costly, and time consuming for you, and we're investing in you through these agents to help you. Once you get going, assess usage, frequency, and intensity, evaluate the signals, and then refine and scale it. So you can really start with maybe some of your more technically capable users, people that are interested in AI, get them onto a short pilot. And once you've proved how things work in the wild, you can engage the rest of the team and the rest of the functions. So it goes from really like that individual level sourcing agent, for example, a sourcer, to a team level, maybe a small recruiting team of a couple of recruiters in the sourcer who are then implementing it between themselves and then rolls out the whole recruiting function, eventually the whole HR function. You'll have a dashboard where you can see really who across the whole function is leading on this, who needs more help. That's what refining and scaling is all about. So I'm going to show you jumping back into my Copilot, some more agents that we made. In my previous video, I did this in a lot more depth. So I do encourage you to go over and look at that. But here's what we have in Copilot currently for me. This is my favorite one. It's called Cowork. And you can see that it's able to connect across email, calendar, meeting preparations, company research. So I'll show you a chat that I did with it where the prompt was identify low-hanging fruit candidates for the RN OR job at IU Health and create personalized outreach. And see here, it's making those autonomous decisions. Oh, sorry, didn't put it on my screen. Here's the prompt. It's making the autonomous decisions where it's saying to itself and us, I need to start by examining the RN candidates. The file isn't available, so I'm checking an alternative path. Now I'm checking this file, and it's telling us like its thought process I got across every section. Get messages, reading the data, and here's the big one. So I'm seeing that the user already ran through this exact message before. Okay, looking at the ATS data, I'm identifying the strongest candidates. These are all fake names, by the way. Why are they strong candidates? Like 15 years experience, Da Vinci experience, robotic specialty, 10 years. So you can see that it's recognizing that experience is important. And then it's putting people into the silver medal position, passed over. And then it's thinking, okay, now I need to make those email drafts. So it's doing a lot of stuff here autonomously based on that one prompt. And the end result was 14 drafts in my email that I just needed to approve and send. I could send that with a prompt or just send manually myself. Here's a few more that I've been playing with. So labor relations tracker, which I mentioned earlier. Help employees stay informed, productive, and connected. Tell us what to focus on this week. This is connected to my arbitrations and grievances spreadsheet. And you can see here that it's asking for permission to go in and look at that. And then it's carrying things out. So it asks for permission at each step of the way, which is very important. It's not going to be sending out anything that you haven't approved. And then it's asking me, okay, is this what you want? And lines things up and goes away and does it. Now, in my prompt, I could say, give me a quick summary. I don't have time to sit here and have a big conversation with you about it. Or you can program what that conversation is. But you'll get to the point where it's about what do I actually do whenever these are working for me? Like, what do I do with that free time that I've just unlocked? Because yeah, I'm at like a loss for that as well. Do I get another agent working or do I go on social media? It's a question of this time that we saved. How are we using it? But you can see here that it's gone into that sheet. And I created the sheet a few weeks ago, so it's telling me that these are all overdue. And it's told me a couple of deadlines and union labor meetings. So it's really telling me really what I do in my week of working in labor relations here. There's a lot more, but don't have time to go into them all today. Finishing up, I want to tell you a little bit more about an exciting one that I've came across, an exciting use case, and how you can make it work. So it's possible to connect Copilot with a calling external software. Is that it? A VoIP? A phone software, really, that can do outbound calls on your behalf. So you can prompt it to identify these people in my ATS and then have a conversation with them, make phone outreach to them to talk about this open position. So that's really where the magic, I think, comes in here, where you can connect this to outside tools and services on the one hand, and then to your Microsoft suite on the other. It can then work across those. So it can work between your ATS and this calling agent, work between your ATS and your email, and really connect everything up to make the difference. So if you have found this interesting, but you're not quite sure if you can do it alone, well, I've got good news for you. We're able to help you. So visit copilot.appleshot.com. You'll learn a little bit more about our offer and the process that I've been describing today. How it works is we take 30 days to bring your HR workflows into the AI era. So identify what's slowing you down, help you redesign the workflows, step 2, and then help you deploy it. So it's only 30 days. It's to prove to you that there are areas that you can optimize, to talk you through them, and then to help you deploy them with a couple of power users in 30 days or more. It's all about identifying what's difficult right now and what do you want to improve. We've been doing this since 2019. So the company's called AppleChat because we wanted to help applicants chat to get jobs. And well, we had to do chatbots and we had to do AI with that. So visit copilot.appleshot.com to learn a little bit more about that. Or you can send me a message if you have any questions about doing this. Really interested and excited to learn what everyone's seeing out there and how they're using this. And together, hopefully, we can help each other to make our lives easier, make ourselves more productive, efficient, and stay afloat in this crazy world of healthcare, HR, and recruiting. So if you find this useful, do drop a comment. Let me know. And if you have any topic suggestions, would love to hear about those too. This is something that really interests me, and I think this is direction that a lot of work is going in healthcare HR. So let's connect and chat about it. Hope to see you on the next webinar, and thanks for coming. Have a great day.